Hello, welcome back to Rev Endurance Sports and another edition of What is in Our Stand today. I'm your host, George, and not only am I the business owner, but I'm also the lead mechanic. So if it's your first time, or maybe you're a repeat customer, as they say, and you've liked the content thus far, please subscribe to the channel. There's also a notification bell that if you click on that, you will be notified when I post a new video. Let's take a look at what is in our stand today, and we'll go over some of the things, if not all of the things, that we are going to do to this bike. First things first, call out the elephant in the room. I've got a bunch of deliveries that came in today, so I apologize for that mess back there. All right, so prior to doing this video, you can see that I've removed the crankset chain and the drivetrain parts, so some of the drivetrain parts. And I inspected them and they were worn beyond the limits, and that's why the bike is in a partial disassembly. Okay, so this gentleman is doing 8-person RAM with, there's several folks that are local, and one of his sons is out of Colorado, so I had the opportunity to meet them when the gentleman dropped off the bike. So that's really cool that he's doing 8-person RAM with his son and I believe his son-in-law. I don't remember the other one, but that's a wonderful thing. All right, so if we look at this bike, the chain was worn and the shift cables were not the Derailleur specific shift cables, so I recommended that we change those. In the process of inspecting and cleaning the bike, so this was much dirtier, or I should say was dirty. It's clean now. This is the bottom tab of his bottle cage, and it's bent. And with most things aluminum, they've only got 1 or 2 cycles of being bent. Which we'll also discuss about the rear derailleur hanger. But we'll probably need to get a new bottle cage for that. The brake cables we're going to leave in place. They rarely will wear, and they're very robust. They're much thicker than a shift cable. All right, let's move over to the bench so we can see what we are going to do. In a previous video, I mentioned the French culinary term of mise en place, and basically it just means everything in place. So what we do, if you have the space, is to set out your tools. Now, by all means, this isn't everything I'm going to need. I might need a big hammer and a big chisel. I'm just kidding. But sometimes you do need a hammer to get things out, and I may use something like this, which is a rubber mallet, so that it would protect the frame if in case I ricochet off of the item that I'm actually trying to persuade to become dislodged from the frame. All right, let's take a look at what we have here. We have a chain whip, and we have the crescent wrench and the lock ring removal tool, and then we'll need to put the cassette back on. So here's the torque wrench and the socket that this size. Don't actually remember what it is. I just know that that's the one it is. All right, we also have here cable and housing cutters, and I like this tool here because it crimps the cable end very nicely. We always have grease, chain tool to cut the chain to size, snap link tool. The 4, 5, and 6 are the most common nuts or bolts on a bike, so we'll have that. The 5 Newton-meter torque key, and these are great because they make it very dummy proof. You just go around the bike. Stems and steer tube, stem bolts, and also the faceplate bolts are usually no more than 5 Newton-meters, so that's good. This is so that we can when we reapply the crankset, we can torque that to 14 Newton meters. Here's the crankset we'll have to clean. I've already cleaned the 2 derailleurs. And then these are the new parts. So we're going to put a new Dura-Ace chain on. And when I said before that it didn't have the specific shift cables, this is what I meant. These cables have a polymer coating, and within the housing that is dedicated also to the Dura-Ace level, it gives you very, very smooth shifting. And Shimano engineers the kit, the drivetrain as one system, and so they recommend that you use their cables and their housing Dura-Ace level for the Dura-Ace level shifters. This is just a spare cable just so I could show you the cable by itself. That is hard to see in this packaging. We're also going to put an 1134 cassette, and he'll be happy to have that, because when you get into the hills of West Virginia and Western Pennsylvania, just a lot of steep rollers. There's a lot also in Missouri. When I did Race Across America back in 2007, those are the 2 to 3 most painful states. I recommend that anyone who's doing any of these long cross-country events to bring with them a spare derailleur hanger, because in the hustle and bustle of moving bikes around, in the support vehicles, or even, God forbid, someone crashes and you just can't bend these things back perfectly, and sometimes they snap. If you're not familiar with what a rear derailleur hanger looks like, let's go back to the bike real quick. And that is this piece right here. That's what was in the bag, this black piece. And it's supposed to protect the frame when it snaps or it bends, to protect, especially carbon frames are the most common to have these detachable or removable, replaceable hangers. And so there's a specific angle that this needs to be in to shift properly between all the gears, not go too much into the spokes and not come too much this way where the chain would end up into the frame. So these derailleur hangers, they're inexpensive, but they're so specific to a particular bike design that you could be dead in the water for a $25 part. You just can't ride the bike. This tire jack I thought would be interesting. I saw a forum where people were talking about this for putting on tires, and I thought, what the heck, let's experiment with it. A lot of tubeless setups where the tire manufacturer is trying to run themselves safe, so they make the tire just a little bit smaller, maybe a millimeter, and then you have the wheel manufacturer who wants to run themselves safe, and they'll do a tire bead or brake rim area where it's maybe 1 millimeter bigger. I don't know if that's true, but that's the urban legend at the moment. And so when you have a tire that's a little smaller and a wheel that's a little bigger, you're really struggling to get a tubeless tire onto the rim. But I thought I would experiment with his 2 new tires that we're putting on for this RAAM cross-country trip. So 8-person RAAM, I think the record's in the 5-day range. These folks are recreational cyclists, but they wanted to take on a challenge, and more power to them. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions or comments, please post them below, and I'll be happy to address them. And in the meantime, have a great ride, and we will see you on the road.